let's talk about Jon Stewart for a minute, because the former Daily Show star, host of the program that I grew up with, I kind of admired him. I admired his comedy, his wit. Even if I didn't understand the political messaging at the time, he definitely knew how to deliver jokes. It was funny to watch. It was interesting. It kind of inspired me to do what I'm doing now. And of course, he left the Daily Show. Now he's doing this show on Apple Plus, or Apple TV Plus, I should say. Now doing podcasting and doing this show that he's doing now, The Problem with Jon Stewart. And there's a lot of things I could say good about him, but like the Don McLean American Pie song, sometimes, unfortunately, the music just has to die. And that's unfortunately what's happening with Jon Stewart, because someone that I grew up kind of idolizing is now basically another disappointment. And I heard once that you should never ever have heroes in your life, because when they become disappointments, when you realize that they're just human beings, that they will make mistakes, they will upset you, they will disappoint you, it's heart-wrenching, and it's heartbreaking, and you can't deal with it. So it's just better not to have those heroes in your life. It's better not to idolize those people as something more than a human being. And in this case, Jon Stewart is unfortunately no exception. So, well, you've seen this big news, right? That Jon Stewart and the Pentagon honor Ukrainian Nazi at Disney World. That right there is already kind of bad. That already right there is unspeakable. It's basically the current Jon Stewart axing himself, the former Jon Stewart, because the former Jon Stewart, I don't think would celebrate this. I don't think would have, a festival at Disney World honoring, bloodshed and tyranny. Like, the old Jon Stewart would probably mock this and say how ridiculous it is that a Jewish comedian is honoring a white supremacist at the happiest place on earth. That would probably be 1,001 jokes right there on Comedy Central. But nowadays, I don't know if it's the Trump derangement syndrome or what's happening with him. Now, apparently, it's acceptable that a Jewish comedian is honoring notorious neo-Nazis in one of the most corrupted countries on the face of the earth at Disney World. Holy crap. Well, I guess Walt Disney and that guy have similar interests, if you know the backstory. It's so bizarre that a Jewish comedian is going to honor this. I guess Jerry Seinfeld was not available. But here's where this gets even worse, and why I have to bring this up. So someone tweeted this out. This is from Victims of Capitalism Memorial Foundation. That's a very interesting handle there. And it's a clip from his podcast show. And this is very, very surreal, considering who Jon Stewart is, the persona of him, and the Daily Show. Again, I grew up with the gags and the jokes and the mockery of the establishment, and I know he was on Comedy Central, so it was lighthearted and wasn't really as full force as someone like George Carlin or Bill Hicks, any of those kind of people. But this is where it gets so bizarre, and he makes the point here. Hard to imagine a younger Jon Stewart having anything but contempt for the way older Jon Stewart, the current one, handled this imperialistic apologia spouted by two unreprehended war criminals. So he invites on Hillary Clinton and Condoleezza Rice to his podcast show to do an interview. These are the two most nefarious criminals known imaginable. They shouldn't be interviewed in a lighthearted podcast series. They should be interrogated by the FBI. They should be the ones that should be exposed for exactly the war crimes that they're doing. But they're going to do this in the podcast, and they're going to explain to them exactly how they're criminals and brag about it. They're going to brag about how notorious they are and unspeakable they are when it comes to committing torture crimes, when it comes to bombing different countries, killing off democratically elected leaders, and it is just so unbelievable that it is gut-wrenchingly painful to see this out in the open. But let's take a watch.
You know, just very briefly on Libya, because that was on my watch.
But this is not, again.
No, but my point, I want to make a larger point because, you know, Gaddafi was a bad actor. Everybody knew he was a bad actor, and he threatened to kill his people by cockroaches. The United States was actually...
By the way, that was never true. That was never, ever, ever, ever true. They have no investigation, no evidence to back those claims. It was just another fabrication, just like the weapons of mass destruction, just like the incubator babies, just like how they're saying, you know, Bashir al-Assad gassed his own people, just like how they're saying Putin invaded Ukraine. It's all fabricated stories to make one person seem like an evil, bad boogeyman so we can go after him. It's manufacturing consent. And I'm sure it was cultivized by the Hillary Clinton campaign, because Hillary Clinton, even as a senator, even as the foreign affairs leader, even as Secretary of State, she was able to have that power. Same with Condoleezza Rice. She was part of the George Bush administration. She was part of the cultivization of the invasion of Iraq, which Jon Stewart knows are bad. He knows that they're war crimes, but he's going to sit there dumbfounded and be like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more.
The supporter of European countries through NATO and the Arab League, which for the very first time came and said, we want to be part of trying to protect the people of Libya. Now, so I feel that that particular intervention, we had certain capabilities militarily that nobody else had, which we used to assist them. But, you know, the Emiratis were flying and the Jordanians were flying, et cetera. The problem, and this is where I think you make a really good point. The problem is, okay, Gaddafi's gone.
He came, we saw, we came, he saw, we died. Yay! War crimes. I can't believe that she will admit, like, literally say this on a podcast. This is like more intense than the Jeffrey Dahmer interviews. And I've seen a lot of those on YouTube, of course, with the big, you know, Netflix series that everyone's been talking about. I still have not watched that. I've contemplated on it. I don't know if I want to watch it. I don't want to really know about it because of how notorious that guy really is. But just watching the interviews from prison where he was on, you know, news networks and he was talking about his war crime, he's talking about his crimes, you know, killing people and cannibalizing and all that stuff. The difference between Jeffrey Dahmer and something like this is at least Dahmer knew what he was doing was bad. That's the only difference. That makes me a little less intense for Jeffrey Dahmer. I have a little bit more respect for Jeffrey Dahmer than these two, because they're openly admitting their crimes and they think they're doing great work. They think somehow this is national security. It's for the benefit of the world that we go slaughter, torture, overthrow an entire country and turn it into some sex slave cult. Somehow we're doing magnificent work for the world and humanity. We're serving those people. We're helping the people of Libya. Even though, did the Libyans actually ask for help? Because they have their own military. They have their own population. I'm pretty sure their own country would be able to resolve their own issues. But the United States suddenly got, we got to step into it. We got to step into it. Because as the world, you know, police, the United States and military intervention, we have to dominate, control, and occupy every single territory across the globe. That's just how crazy, barbaric, and insane this is. Coming from Hillary Clinton and Condoleezza Rice, and it's even more gut-wrenching than Jeffrey Dahmer. I'll say that. Jeffrey Dahmer at least knew what he did was wrong. Serial killers know what they did was wrong. These two have no idea. They are soulless. They are completely no empathy, no respect, no respect for life whatsoever. And Jon Stewart is sitting there being dumbfounded. And that really kills. That really kills. This is current Jon Stewart basically murdering his old former self, because I know the old Jon Stewart, the Daily Show Jon Stewart, would not take this. The Daily Show Jon Stewart would be mocking this endlessly.
His horrible prisons are emptied. What comes next?
Right. That's
what comes next?
And that's always a problem, because there's always a vacuum. Because look, dictators don't allow institutions to flourish. So when you take the
dictators don't allow institutions to flourish, as opposed to the United States that has Guantanamo Bay, that has the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, Homeland Security, ICE. All these security institutions to make us safer. And we're also installing new, apparatuses of the security state. We're also introducing, misinformation boards. Because it's not about personal, physical safety. It's also about mental safety, because people online are spreading misinformation. They're spreading a bunch of context and nobody understands what's true and what isn't. And apparently we can't critically think or actually determine for ourselves, so we gotta have someone else do it for us. The United States has been doing this for decades. Decades! And they're trying to pin it on another country. They're trying to pin what the United States has done relentlessly. And they are proud of it. They are proud of the fact that it's an oligarchy. They are proud of the fact that we're in a security state. They're proud of the fact that one of the richest nations on the face of the earth, and about 70% of the working public, is working paycheck to paycheck and can't afford a $1,000 emergency. They're proud of that factor. They'll say it about any other country, but they're proud to have it in the United States. Those are the kind of sick, cynical people that we have ruling us. That's the neoliberalism inside of them. And they still don't believe what they did was wrong. Lying, manipulating, genocides, murderously killing people by the millions. Millions. Like I said, Jeffrey Dahmer at least knew what he did was wrong. And he only did a few people. These two combined have slaughtered millions.
Dictator out, there are no institutions.
That's right.
So but the question becomes, do you then say, let Gaddafi go ahead and kill his people because it's going to be hard afterwards? Or in our case, we thought Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Are you going to let that continue, or are you going to take him out? And then do the best that you can in helping people to recover. You have to recognize that it's going to be hard.
I remember growing up watching endless clips of Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert when he did the Colbert Report. Endlessly making jokes about the fact that George W. Bush lied about the weapons of mass destruction. They were the two that kind of started this controversy. And then there was other people that also got on board. And then there was also investigative reporters that have also spoken up about this. How they fabricated the investigation, how there was no evidence to back the claims. And it's all out in the open, folks. Like, you look at all the articles, people know for a fact that there was no weapons of mass destruction. They know that for a fact. But this lady here still will not come to terms with it. She's completely in denial, completely full of herself, completely narcissistic, and still thinks that, oh, we had to lie to the general public because the general public were helping them. We're aiding them because some other guy that we have no idea, no evidence, no accountability for is somehow the worst person, as opposed to us that's actually oppressing you out in the open. And Jon Stewart is sitting there, just sitting there. It completely mind boggles me. This is current Jon Stewart murdering his former self. Like, how can you sit there and listen to these two brag about criminal activity, international crimes against humanity, and be okay with it? Well, I guess you gave, a prize to a Nazi, so anything can happen. Anything can happen in 2022.
Once you take the dictator out. But John, it's a little bit of a false choice to say, well, then just leave the dictator in place because it won't be chaotic. It may not be chaotic.
I guess what I'm saying is,
it may not be chaotic.
if we take
but
that
it might
role
be brutal
on,
against the people.
If we take that role on, can we sustain as a country? When you think about the Soviet Union's collapse, they overextended and they got in an arms race with us, and they had all these satellites. Are we overextending America's power, especially militarily, when you talk about an $800 billion defense budget?
Let's assume instead of being in a podcast studio,
Okay, so the first time Jon Stewart actually says something, the first time he actually responds to this, I want to give him a small little step, because he does make a point about, is this the end of the American empire? Have we extended ourselves so much? Have we extended our military to go all around the world and it's collapsing within itself? Should we be concerned about that? Should we be concerned about the safety of our country if we're continuing to expand abroad? I want to give credit to that. At the same time, though, why was this not said earlier? And why would you not actually investigate and actually bring up these topics and actually interrogate these two people instead of doing tea time like they're at The View? Why are you not bringing up that factor? I thought you were supposed to be the edgy show because you're on Apple TV Plus. I thought you were supposed to be edgier. You're on a streaming platform. Why are you not getting edgier with these two? Why are you not calling out the crimes that they're actually committing? Why are you not saying, hey, did you have evidence to prove that Gaddafi was killing people with cockroaches? Do you have any proof or evidence to back those claims? Did you have any evidence for the weapons of mass destruction? Because we invaded that country for 20 straight years and nothing has happened. No investigation, no proof, no evidence, no accountability. None of these people have been held for accountability to lying to the American public. God. This is just unbelievably, this is torture in itself. God, even just, I can't even look at the screenshot there because that face just screams massacre. It is unbelievable that you have two people, two of the world's most known mastermind criminals of politics, of foreign affairs, of committing genocides, of unspeakable, inhumane torture facilities, and lying to the American public and manipulating people to get us into these wars, to get us into these conflicts for the benefits of them, and massacring, slaughtering by the millions. Like, these are mass murderers beyond belief. And they're on a podcast show with Jon Stewart, and Jon Stewart is sitting back and just letting this happen. So I really can't give Jon Stewart even the credit for what he said there. I really can't, because of how gut-wrenching this is.
We were in the Situation Room, or, in the tank, in the Defense Department, wherever we were. Right. Okay. And we're saying, okay, what do you see on the horizon? Well, right. North Korea is shooting these missiles over our ally, Japan.
Right.
China is trying to build up its blue water navy so that it can compete with us anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, have you also noticed that before all this happened, we were the ones advancing warfare on them? You ever notice that North Korea building up its nuclear arsenal because the U.S. Navy has completely dominated its waters all across North Korea? And remember when Donald Trump actually shook Kim Jong-un's hand in a peace agreement and was trying to actually negotiate and find diplomacy that the United States backs out and North Korea denuclearizes? What happened? The mainstream media freaked out. The mainstream media went nuts because the thought of peace is going to ruin the structure of the military-industrial complex, which the mainstream media is a part of. You wonder why this is happening. You wonder why, all these, nefarious figures, all these nefarious people. Even Hillary Clinton knows herself. We're the ones that create terror. We're the ones that create the terrorists. We were the ones that installed Al-Qaeda. She even admitted in front of Congress in 2010 that it was done by the United States government to go against the Soviet Union. We installed this terrorist group in Afghanistan to take down the Soviet Union, and then we gave them more weapons, we gave them more intel, we gave them all this training, this CIA-backed training, and guess what? They became terrorists. And then we had to fight our own creation. It is unbelievable that these two could sit here and brag about the unspeakable things they have done to this entire planet and not have any remorse, not have any doubts, not have any regrets, not have any empathy for those people. Nothing. Nothing. They're not even held accountable. Nothing's going to happen. Not even Jon Stewart. Not even Jon Stewart, barely saying a word. Like, he's sitting there just... And he knows. He knows how nefarious these two are. He knows how deadly and insane these people are.
You've got, the Russia-China relationship. It's tricky, but we have to watch it really carefully because we don't know where that might lead. We've got Iran, still a very bad actor, and probably, in addition to killing their people, will cause some external problems in order to take people.
Again, a fake story. There was an Instagram post that proved it was fake. They posted on Instagram that, 15,000 murdered in Iran during the protests against helping women and stuff like that. 15,000 people were confirmed dead. That got debunked because people actually went to the scene of the crime and they realized none of it happened. None of it happened. That was a completely fabricated story by the United Nations in alliance with the military-industrial complex to, again, make Iran seem like the boogeyman so we have compliance and people get manipulated to go over there and start massacring those people. It's something we've been doing for decades, since the 50s, for God's sakes. Probably even before then.
People's minds off it. We have a lot of issues. So do we just sit back and hope for the best, or do we try to be positioned in enough places with enough support that we can be a good ally to those who are counting on us?
And you have to watch the potential rise of terrorism again. So you have a lot on your plate. But I would just say, should the United States be selective in the use of its military power?
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
After Afghanistan,
like the rebirth of George W. Bush. We got to focus on the terror. The terror out there. We got to make people fear again. Make people fear again. The terror. The terror that's upon us. You realize that terror is a non-objective. It's something inside of you. It's a feeling. You feel terror. You feel happiness. It's like having a war on happiness. It's not an actual object. You can't fight terror. That's a completely misunderstood phrase that they keep using. The war on terror. You're fighting your own feelings. Like, do you understand the concept here? Am I the only crazy one that just wants to end the wars and actually focus on things back home? How we have a homelessness epidemic? How we have people living in deep, dire poverty in the richest nations? Is that something that, concerning to most people? Probably. Why is none of that being mentioned on here? Because they're so concerned about policing other countries. Oh, we gotta make sure they're doing the right things because this guy's a bad actor. This guy's a boogeyman. This and that and this and that. Oh, these two are making allies. This is about keeping domination and oppressing the entire world. This is the military-industrial complex occupying territory and occupying economies all around the world. And Jon Stewart just sitting there. Like, the one thing he said, maybe I can give credit to. Maybe I can give small amount of credit to. But the fact that he's just sitting there and letting this happen, letting them brag on, and just complying with it. Oh, yeah. It's just so terrible. It is just so, ugh. And I know I know the persona of him. I know that his former self would hate this. They would be mocking this constantly if he was still hosting the Daily Show. He knows how terrible this is. Just like he knows that giving an award to a Nazi in Disney World as a Jewish comedian is terrible. So I don't know if it's the Trump derangement syndrome or he just wants, to get back in the career game and climb that corporate ladder. I don't know what it is, but he knows better, and that's why this is so painful. He knows better to invite these two. I expect this from The View because The View doesn't really understand this, but from someone like Jon Stewart, come on, pal. Come on. And that, my friends, is when the music unfortunately dies. Bye-bye, Miss American Pie.